So, Mr. Secretary General, thank you so much for this meeting. And first of all, to understand Georgia's potential for integration into NATO, I'd like to ask you about the NATO's enlargement policy. How much it is important for NATO, how much NATO is searching for the new partners and new allies. Even let's talk about about the North Atlantic geography, and for instance in Asia, to face to respond to the new threats of the global security, or what is the response to the President Trump's new idea to integrate Brazil into NATO?
So NATO's open door policy has been a great success. After the end of the Cold War, NATO enlarged with many new allies from Central and Eastern Europe, the Baltic countries, Poland, Hungary, Slovakia, the Czech Republic, Romania, Bulgaria, and many countries in the Balkans. So NATO enlargement has helped to spread democracy, stability, prosperity throughout Europe, and has been one of our greatest success stories. NATO's door remains open. In 2017, Montenegro became a member of the alliance, and this year, in 2019, we signed an accession protocol with North Macedonia, and soon North Macedonia will be a full member of the alliance. All of this shows that NATO's door remains open. When it comes to Georgia, well, I was present at the NATO summit in 2008 in Bucharest. I was there as a Norwegian Prime Minister, and that was the summit where NATO allies made the decision that Georgia will become a member of NATO. That decision has been reiterated many times since then. The last time all NATO heads of state and government stated the same was at the last NATO summit in July 2018. So NATO stands firmly on the message that Georgia will become a member. But we have not a timetable, we don't have a date for when that will happen.
Yeah. What about the North Atlantic geography? Could we see the new partners from above this sphere?
So we can see partners, and we have partners from outside the North Atlantic area.
I mean, membership partners.
No, NATO is for European countries and for Canada and the United States. This is clearly stated in the founding treaty, in the Washington Treaty. But of course, we can have close partnerships. We can work closely with countries, for instance, also in Latin America. Colombia is now a partner of NATO. We have partners New Zealand, Australia. We have partners all over the world. Roughly, I think it's 40 partner countries which are working closely with NATO.
You mentioned the Europe and European security system. I mean, I would like to ask you about what kind of challenges of European security structure we have after the Russian and US withdrawal from INF Treaty. Are we facing a new arms race?
I think what we have to understand is that the INF Treaty, which was signed in 1987, has been a cornerstone for our security for many years. The INF Treaty, which was signed by President Reagan and Premier Gorbachev, was a great achievement because it banned all intermediate range weapons. And that has made us all safer and more secure. What we see now is that Russia is violating this treaty by deploying new intermediate range missiles in Europe, something called SSC-8. These missiles are nuclear capable. They can reach European cities. They are hard to detect because they are mobile, and they reduce the warning time to mere minutes. And therefore also the threshold, there is a threshold for any potential use of nuclear weapons in an armed conflict. So these weapons are dangerous. Therefore we strongly call on Russia to come back into compliance.
And what could be the response of NATO for that?
First of all, the response has been all NATO allies have clearly stated that Russia is in violation of the treaty. All NATO allies have clearly stated together and united that we call on Russia to come back into compliance. There are no new US missiles in Europe, but there are a lot of new Russian missiles in Europe. That's the reason why this treaty now is in jeopardy, that Russia is violating the treaty. No treaty can keep us safe, it's only respected by one side. Then we have announced that if Russia doesn't come back into compliance, and they have a 6-month window to do so, then of course we need to respond to a world, or to take into account that we live in a world without the INF Treaty and with more Russian missiles. We will be measured, we will be defensive in what we do, but we don't have any intentions of deploying new nuclear land-based missiles in Europe.
So, and finally, I would like to ask you about the global terrorism, which is one of the biggest threats to the global security, actually. What we are to face after defeat of ISIS, and which does not mean that they are not existing anymore. Many even expect that they will change their tactics and strategy of behavior. And also it is quite important what could be after NATO's withdrawal from Afghanistan. We know what has happened after withdrawal of Iraq.
NATO has played and is playing a key role in the fight against terrorism. We do that in Afghanistan. We continue to be in Afghanistan, but the main purpose of our presence in Afghanistan is to create the conditions for a peaceful negotiated solution. We will not stay in Afghanistan longer than necessary, but we will stay until we see that we have an agreement, that we have a situation that enables us to reduce or leave. And that's exactly why we are welcoming the peace negotiations which are going on now. In close consultation with NATO allies, the United States is now negotiating with the Taliban. I'm absolutely certain that one of the reasons why we see progress in the peace negotiations is that Taliban have seen that NATO is present, and not least Georgia has been part of that mission for many years. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers over the years from Georgia. Many have lost their lives, paid the ultimate price. But one of the reasons why Taliban is now negotiating is that they see that they cannot win on the battlefield, they have to sit down and negotiate. So hopefully we have a peace agreement, and then we went into Afghanistan together, all NATO allies and partners, including Georgia, and we have to make decisions on our future posture together, including with a partner nation as Georgia. In Iraq, the main message is that, well, we have made enormous progress in the fight against Daesh or ISIL, but the fight is not over. Daesh has gone underground, and they conduct covert operations, and they operate also in other parts of the world. So we have to continue to be vigilant and extremely focused on the fight against terrorism. One of the best weapons we have is training local forces, training Iraqi forces, and that's exactly what NATO now is doing, is that we are training Iraqi forces.
So, Mr. Secretary General, thank you so much for this interview, and wish you good luck back. Just briefly tell us, what would you personally like Georgia to achieve for integration?
I would like Georgia to continue to implement reforms. We have done a lot, and we just want to do even more.